Hi students, today we are going to take chapter 5, the fundamental unit of life. So, I'm going to reading. While examining a thin slice of cork, Robert Hooke saw that the cork resembled the structure of a honeycomb consisting of many little compartments. Cork is a substance which comes from the bark of a tree. This was in the year 1665 when Hooke made this chance observation through a self-designed microscope. Robert Hooke called these boxes cells. Cell is a Latin word for a little room. This may seem to be very small and insignificant incident, but it is very important in the history of science. This was the very first time that someone had observed that living things appear to consist of separate units. The use of the word cell to describe these units is used still this day in biology. Let us find out about the cells. It means that when a scientist he was the first discovered the cell. His name is Robert Hooke. He take the bark from a tree and and he put that bark in the is self-designed microscope. He sees a little boxes in that cork. So he called that box as cells. Cell is a word. It comes from a little room. So in this paragraph they are saying about these things only. Next we can go 5.1 what are living organisms made up of. It is activity. So in next slide we can see the compound microscope. The upper part the eyepiece. There is a coarse adjustment, fine adjustment, arm, objective lens, stage, mirror, base, microscope, slide, slip, body tube. Under that we can see one thing. What do we observe as we look through the lens? Can we draw the structure that we are able to see through the microscope on observation sheet? Does it looks like figure 5.2? So you can see the 5.2 here. Cell of the onion peel. It is a cell of inside the onion. Okay. As we are going to we can try preparing temporary mounds of peels of onion of different sizes. What do we observe? Do we see similar structure or different structure? Next, what are these structures? These structures look similar to each other together. They form a big structure like an onion bulb. We found from this activity that onion bulbs of different sizes have similar small structure visible under a microscope. The cell of the onion peel, we all look the same regardless of the size of the onion they came from. In this paragraph, they say about the cell of onion peel. Everybody look under the microscope, the onion. We all see the same cells regardless of the size. Only there's a difference. The small structure that we see are the basic building units of the onion bulb. The small structures that we see are the basic building units of onion bulb. These structures are called cells. That is the definition of cell. Not only onions but all organisms that we observe around are made up of cells. However, there are also single cells that live on their own. Next. Next cell were first discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. He observed the cells in the cork slice with the help of a primitive microscope. In this box we can see more to know. Cells were first discovered by a scientist. His name is Robert Hooke. He discovered the cell in the year 1665. He found the cell in the cork slice. He used a microscope to see the cells. His microscope's name is primitive microscope. Next, a scientist, Leeuwenhoek, 1674, in the year 1674, through an improved microscope, discovered the free-living cells in the pond water for the first time. He found free-living cells in the pond water. Next, it was Robert Hooke in 1831 who discovered the nucleus in the cell. Purinjo in 1839. The Robert Hooke discovered nucleus in the cell in the year 1831. Purinjo in 1839 coined the term protoplasm for the fluid substance of the cell. Purinjo is a scientist. He coined the term protoplasm. He used the protoplasm for the fluid substance of the cell in the year 1839. The cell theory that all the plants and animals are composed of cells and that the cell is a basic unit of life. It means that cell theory example is they are saying here. What is example? Not example. Definition. The cell theory is composed of plants and animals. The cell theory was found by two scientists, Schwalten in 1838 and Schwab in 1839. The cell theory was further expanded by a scientist. His name is Virchow in the year 1855. Next, the electronic microscope discovered in the year 1940. So, we want to study this. From this, we can come the question answers. So, it is an important part. The invention of magnifying lens led to the discovery of the microscope world. It is now known that a single cell may consist a whole organism as in amoeba, gallimodomes, paramecium and bacteria. These organisms are called unicellular organisms. Uni means single. The definition of unicellular organism are an organism have one cell is called unicellular organism or a single cell. On other hand, many cells group together in a single body and assume different functions into the form various body parts in multicellular organism. Multi means many. The definition of multicellular organism is that an organism have cells more than two is called multicellular organisms. Next, every multicellular organism has come from a single cell. Every multicellular organism is come from a single cell. How cells divide to produce cells of their own kind? All cells thus come from pre-existing cells. There is an activity 5.22. Under that we can see some organisms can also have cells of different kinds. Look at the following pictures. It depicts some cells from the human body. First we can see smooth muscle cell. Next we can see blood cells. Here nerve cells, fat cell, bone cell, sperm, ovum. These are the various cells in the human body. Next is that the shape and size of cells are related to the specific function they perform. Some cells like amoeba have changing shape. Some cells have a changing shape. Example amoeba. In some cases, the cell shape could be more or less fixed and suitable for a particular type of cell. Example, nerve cells have a typical shape. Each living cell has the capacity to perform certain specific functions that are characteristics of all living forms. How does a living cell perform these basic functions? We know that there is a division of labor in multicellular organisms such as human beings. This means that different parts of the human body perform different functions. The human body has a heart to pump blood, and the human body has an heart to pump blood, a stomach to digest food. Similarly, the division of labor is also as a cord. Certain specific compounds within it known as cells or organelles. Each kind of cell organelles performs a specific function such as making new material in the cell, clearing up the waste material from the cell and so on. A cell is able to live and perform all its functions because of these organelles. These organelles together constitute the basic unit called the cell. It is interesting that all cells are found to have the same organelles no matter what their function is or what organism they are found in. Next we can see there is a question 1, 2. If we know these two answers, I also say in this chapter these two answers. Please comment these two answers. Okay. 5.2. What is cell made up of? What is the structural organization of a cell? We saw above that the cell has specific function called organelles. The cell has a specific compounds called organelles. The cell has a specific compounds called organelles. The definition of organelles. How is a cell organized? If we study a cell under a microscope, we would come across three features in almost every cell: plasma membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. A cell is made up of plasma membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. All activities inside the cell and interaction of the cell with its environment are possible due to these features. Let us see how. Next, 5.2.1. Plasma membrane or cell membrane. It is outermost covering of the plant that, not covering of the cell, that separate the contents of the cell from its external environment. The plasma membrane allows or permits the entry and exit of some other materials in and out of the cell. It also prevents the movement of some other materials. The cell membrane, therefore, is called selective membrane. The definition starts from the selective membrane is that plasma membrane allows or permits and switch the is called selective membrane. Next, how does the movement of substance takes place into the cell? How do substance move out of the cell? Some substance like carbon dioxide or oxygen can move across the cell membrane by a process called diffusion. Some substance like carbon dioxide or oxygen can move across the cell membrane. It's called diffusion. We have studied the process of diffusion in earlier chapters. We saw that there is a spontaneous movement of substance from a region of high concentration to a region where its concentration is low. It is also the definition of diffusion. The spontaneous movement of substance from a region of high concentration to a region where its concentration is low. Something similar to this happens in cells when, for example, some substance like CO2, which is cellular waste and requires to be excreted by the cell, accumulates in high concentration inside the cell. In the cell's external environment, the concentration of the CO2 is low as compared to that side the cell. As soon as there is a difference of concentration of CO2 inside and outside a cell, CO2 moves out of the cell from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration outside the cell by the process of diffusion. Similarly, O2 enters the cell by the process of diffusion when the level of concentration of CO2 inside the cell decreases. Next, water also obeys the law of diffusion. The movement of water molecules through such a selective membrane is called osmosis. What is called osmosis? The movement of water molecules through such a selective membrane is called osmosis. This is part 1. So, did you like this video? Please subscribe and comment. Thank you.